Hello, my name is Cuong Tran, and today I'll be talking about my practicum experience at Spec Services for my Master's in Technical Communications. This presentation will include a bit about myself, how I got the job, the company and team at Spec Services, the specification coordinator, and what it's like to be one, the many different software I use, completing consultant first and second checks, teaching new spec coordinators and spec administrators, and last but not least, what I have learned here at Spec Services. So, a bit about myself. I have a bachelor's in English literature, a minor in music, and a certificate in technical communication, all obtained at UNT. Prior to working at Spec Services, I had many different job experiences, such as work at the UNT Media Library as an opening student assistant supervisor. Here, I gained invaluable customer service experience. I also had an internship at AT&T in the writing proposal center, where here I learned everything about proposals from writing to submitting, etc. Last but not least, I worked with Dr. Fries as a TechCom grad assistant, where I collaborated with her to promote technical communication in high schools. That was a bit about myself. Now the question is, how do I end up at Spec Services? How do I got the job? Well, during my undergrad, I had a colleague, now a great friend, who's still with the company to this day, reached out to me and asked if I was looking for a job. I talked with her a couple of times, asking her for the job description, what it's like to work here. Once I believe it acceptable and works with TechCom, I forwarded that to Dr. Kim, who approved it for my practicum. And that is how I got my job, all through connections. The company Spec Services was founded by Susan Bliss in 2016 to revise specification writing. What is specification writing, you may ask? Well, in construction, there are construction drawings where you can see how tall a building is, how long it is, where it is in elevation, etc. However, it does not describe the building. For example, what are we going to build the walls with? Where are we going to get it from? And are we supposed to install it on site or off site? Those can be answered through specifications. We at Spec Services offer that service to our clients to write these specifications and compile it into a project manual and deliver it for the architects all around the United States. At Spec Services, there are three different teams: the K 12 team, the healthcare team, and the multifamily team. I'm currently on the multifamily with West, Kimber, and Doug. And for a period of time, I actually worked one on one with Susan herself with several interior renovation projects. At this time, I cannot write specifications just yet as I do not have the correct construction knowledge at this time. So, my current job title is a specification coordinator. What do I do? Well, I mainly support anyone in the office, whether that be setting up projects on our software. If we are going to do client meetings, I'm going to be there, etc. I'm also learning construction related topics so one day I can write specifications. And I'm preparing and updating front end material in project manuals, such as the title page, where that can include the issue date, issue titles, such as issued for permit, issued for construction. It can include all directory information like the architect, the many different consultants, MEP, electrical, civil, etc. And last but not least, I believe these two are the most important in a spec coordinator: sending consultant templates and checking them in. I will explain these two in a later slide. As a spec coordinator, I also use many different softwares. However, what you see on your screen is what I believe to be the most important. I mainly use Microsoft Word, specifically VisiSpecs. VisiSpecs is a plugin where we can write, update, and produce project manuals for our clients. SpecLink is an online database which does the exact same thing. Spec Services offers these two services so we could broaden our audience and cater to their needs. I also use Adobe Acrobat to preview the project manuals before sending them out. Or if we receive any documentation from clients, I'll be able to open it with Adobe Acrobat and do very basic things with it. I also sometimes use Bluebeam, a construction specific software where you can view construction drawings, more specifications, and other documents necessary. And last but not least, I use Microsoft Outlook for client correspondence. Now, that was a bit about my job title and what programs I use. Now, let's connect what I'm working on here at Spec Services to my practicum, my master's. One thing that I do very often, as I said earlier, is consultant checks. This is also related to first and second checks, so I'll be covering it here now. In project manuals, there are at least architectural specifications where we at Spec Services offer to write for architects. However, construction is not only limited to architectural specifications. There are many different aspects we must consider as well. These aspects are covered by consultants. Consultants include, but it's not limited to, civil consultant, landscape consultant, mechanical engineer, electrical, and plumbing consultant, or MEP for short, and etc. So what we do in office is we will have a template along with instructions. We will send it out to these consultants for them to write their specification under our instructions, and they'll send it back to us. My job is to make sure that what they send back to us aligns with what we want. The instructions are essentially a style guide. These include using Arial 9 font, not using color, being careful about brackets and placeholders, making sure there's a part 1, part 2, part 3, and an end of section, and so much more. So, during my time in my master's degree, I've learned about structural editing. And I believe what I'm doing now, as for consultant checks, is structural editing, making sure that all style looks the same. First and second checks are basically consultant checks, but on a much larger scale. At the very end, before we send out the project manual to the client, we will complete a first and second check where we look through the entire project manual from page 1 to the end of the page, end of the project manual, making sure, once again, no brackets, part 1, part 2, part 3, the font looks the same, etc. And that is what I do as a spec coordinator for consultant first and second checks. Another thing that I picked up here during my time in spec services is teaching new spec coordinators and spec administrators. During my time in my master's, I've taken an instructional design course. Although I'm not creating a presentation to teach these new spec coordinators and spec administrator, I'm taking topics from that course and bringing it into perspective when teaching these new hires. For example, as a spec administrator just started and she is not tech fluent. So my goal is to make sure that she understands how to complete our in-house procedures while understanding basic technology terms, such as how to copy and paste, what does it mean to right click, how to make sure you are selecting the correct PDF, etc. All this I've taken into consideration when also teaching her how to do consultant first and second checks. I will be taking a little more time walking through with her, doing the micro steps like, okay, in order to copy, you will click Control C or right click and click copy, and much more. I've taken pride and enjoyment in helping out the spec administrator to boost her knowledge in technology literacy. Now, to conclude, what I have learned here at Spec Services. One, I can apply what I've learned in my master's in a specialized industry. I've taken technical editing skills and teaching skills and applied it here at Spec Services for specification writing. I also had strengthened leadership, adaptability, and critical thinking. Once again, with the spec administrator, I have to adapt my teaching style to someone who isn't technologically technologically fluent, excuse me, and be able to critically think what's the best way to teach her these skills. I also learned to ask for help early and often as being in a new field, I do not know much. I would like to learn things myself. However, I must consider my time valuable as well as other people's time. So I've learned to ask for help early. And last but not least, I've learned to develop a strong attention to detail. As you could see in the previous slide with the images, the specification looks very, very boring. The font exactly the same, the the numbering the same, the lack of color. So your eyes will glaze over very fast. So as a specification coordinator, I learned to build a strong attention to detail. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I would like to thank Sophie, who was the person who reached out to me for offering such an interesting experience here at Spec Services. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a pleasant day.